John the Baptist was in prison, and he sent some of his disciples to Jesus to ask the question, are you the one who's to come, or are we to look for another? Jesus answered, perhaps not the way John would have wished, or perhaps we might have hoped. He doesn't say he's the prophet, and he doesn't say he's not the prophet. What he does is, says that the blind hear, the lame walk, lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the poor have good news proclaimed to them. After he gives this litany of miracles, Jesus in verse 6 of the 11th chapter of Matthew says, "Blessed is the one who takes no offence at me." What could that possibly mean? Blessed is the one who takes no offence at Jesus. To answer that, we really need to go back to some preceding chapters in Matthew's Gospel, because in the 10th chapter, for instance, we have Jesus saying the one who finds their life will lose it, but the one who loses their life for my sake will find it. He says again, I have come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against his mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and one's foes will be members of his own household. And what about this for a hard statement to understand? Do you think that I've come to bring peace to the world? I've come not to bring peace, but to the sword. It's easy to follow Jesus if he's feeding you with loaves and fish, if he's turning water into wine, because he's bringing people back from the dead, because he was transfigured in front of his disciples. Easy to follow the miracle worker, and we crave for a miracle. Just one would be enough for us. But the real test of faith really is, do you believe in Jesus when there's no apparent reason to believe in him? When you don't see a miracle, what do you do then? And that is when discouragement comes in. Discouragement can be perhaps the entry point for Satan. When we begin to be discouraged, we give up on ourselves, we start to doubt ourselves, start to doubt our friends, and ultimately we doubt God. What do we do when we are seemingly alone? Do we give up? Do we give in? Last week we had the funeral of Nelson Mandela. He didn't give up. 27 years of imprisonment didn't allow him to give up. And he came out of prison not as a bitter man, but as a reconciler and as a healer. The slaves that were brought from Africa to America, they didn't give up on God, nor should we. It's at the times when we feel most discouraged, that's the time to hang on and not give in, because God doesn't give up on us. We speak about perseverance of the saints. Yes, but what about God who pursues us like the hound of heaven? God whose patience never runs out. God whose love will never run out. And when we feel worn out, when we feel discouraged, it's then that God says to us, come to me, all you who are weary, and I will give you rest. When Jesus said, blessed or happy is the one that takes no offence at me, he wants us to know that the one constant, the one eternal truth, the one sustaining fact in all creation is God's love for us. That's all there is. It is both our history and our promise. It's all we have, and it's all we need.